Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Join me on the first and third Thursdays on the Dr. Diane Show, where I have experts from around the country teaching you cutting-edge therapies on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. And please like and subscribe to my channel, Dr. Diane Hayden. I'm excited today to have with me Sue Martovich. She co-owns Salt of the Earth Sanctuary in Woodbury, Connecticut with her husband, Marty. Transitioning from a corporate career to entrepreneurship, they face challenges including financial setbacks and health issues. Their journey led them to holistic therapies, inspiring them to open their wellness center. Despite setbacks like COVID, they've expanded offerings to include therapies focusing on light, sound, and vibration. And their mission is to promote self-care and healing with meditation as a cornerstone of Sue's personal wellness journey. So welcome, Sue. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Diane. I'm excited to be here. This is
Awesome.
this is my first actual interview, like I mentioned. So, yeah, a little excited. Yeah,
You're gonna do great. You're gonna do great. We go way back. I mean,
we do.
the magazine is 20 years in publishing this year. I don't think it's quite that long, but it's not far off from that as far as how long we've known each other. So,
Yeah, 12 years I've been there.
yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. So I want to start with something that I kind of called your mantra, which you said, many times. Healthcare should start with self-care.
Mm,
So just tell me what that means to you, and then I want to get into obviously your journey and everything that brought you to where you are today.
yeah. Um, Over time with Salt of the Earth, the constant question was, can you fix me? I don't know what to do. You know, uh, I don't know anything beyond grabbing a bottle on the shelf, as a prescription or getting my doctor's guidance. And a lot of people, when I first opened up Salt of the Earth, they didn't know what salt therapy really was. I mean, halotherapy had only been around in the United States for a limited amount of years. So I don't think it was until COVID happened. And I think COVID was the pivotal time for me, where the final shift of what I needed to do to make everything come together happen. But I sat back and I thought about, I had a flashback of my life, and I was sitting in one of my salt rooms because we were told, we had to go on the mandated shutdown, which didn't make any sense to me because what I do, right? So I'm
Yeah, the
sitting in
package
my
stores
salt.
were open, but we couldn't go into a salt cave.
No, you can't go in there to breathe. No. And
Right,
and
right.
considering the type of setup I had was probably more cleaner than a hospital. It was more cleaner than a
I'm
hospital.
sure. Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my lagoon room and I'm just like thinking, and I'm like, wow, I went back to every point of my life and my husband's going through the illnesses that we did and coming full circle. And I said, we lost our ability to be self-advocates for our own healthcare. We lost our ability to be independent thinkers. We got sucked into a system that created a narrative that I'm going to fix you and you can't.
Hmm.
And so at the time when COVID happened, of course, everybody left, the staff, everybody, because I had to close down. And then when I reopened, nobody wanted to come back to work. So,
Right.
right. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And just something came in and said, promote self-care. And I had all these different modalities. I could have easily transitioned into it. I just didn't put it together until that moment. And I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense because I don't have to have anybody hovering over anybody in this room. You know, this treatment could take care of X, Y, Z. And the whole thing of self-care is the awareness of what aligns with me, what is the most effective treatment, but knowing it from here, you know, being that guidance, that navigation coming from here, not from listening to somebody else. So, I mean, self-care can come in all different ways, right? It's not just your health, but for me, that's where it's coming from. And then as women, you know, we were always told to take care of everybody else but ourselves, right? You're the matriarch, you're the you know, you're the nurturing person, but it's for your kids, it's for your husband, it's for your, you know,
Parents.
yeah, your parents.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another one. It's for your pets, it's for your you know, your coworkers, whatever. You, as a woman, you just give of everybody else, but you don't give to yourself.
Mhm.
And that's been something generation after generation after generation has been doing. It's a belief. And it's just something that even when COVID happened, you take care of that person. But what about me? You know, I don't matter.
Mhm.
So when we're doing that, what are we teaching our kids? We're teaching our kids that I come last.
Yep.
And that's so far beyond the truth. It's a false narrative. And we've been in that mindset for so long, and it's hard for anybody to think any other way.
Not only that, though, I think that there are so many people that just put all the responsibility for their health in their doctor's hand, or
Yes.
like in the traditional medical society, you know, whatever, that machine, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't make a decision unless my doctor tells me what I should do, or my doctor tells me I should take this
Yeah.
medication, or my doctor
Yeah.
tells me I should get this vaccine, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And people just blindly go and do it. Like, you know, that guy could have, or girl could have graduated last in their class and they still have an MD degree. It doesn't mean that they
Yeah.
really, you know, and it's not only that, it's that, why are you giving that power to somebody else?
Right.
Shouldn't you be using your own intuitive power on what's the best healthcare that, you know, your body needs? What's the best
Yeah.
modality? How do you complement that? All that.
Well, yeah, which comes back to how do you don't know. You're like, that doesn't, like, that light doesn't come on,
Mm,
you know, because you're, like I said, you're in that pattern. What happens on TV, right? Call your doctor, listen to your doctor, ask your doctor,
yeah,
right? And here, don't get me wrong, I am not sitting here to criticize Western medicine. That's not
right.
my point. I
There's a
mean,
place. Yeah.
you know, there is a place, and I get it. People do rely a lot on their doctors, but um, start with yourself first, because
Mhm.
is that really, you know, something that's good for you? Do you know whether it is or isn't? You know, because a doctor doesn't. They don't know your life pattern. They don't know what your body's sensitive to. They don't know what trauma you've dealt with, right? And we all know that emotion um, drives emotion of health. I mean, if you're caught up in which I could relate to a lot, if you're caught up in crisis that happened in your past and you're holding on to it, that just creates inflammation, you know?
Mhm.
So the emotional end of it, the emotional code doesn't exist in the doctor's office. They
Now,
don't
now,
care
yeah.
about that.
The old school family doctor of the past, maybe, who knew your whole family, right? Like,
Yeah.
who knew your parents and grandparents, whatever, had treated you for so many
Mhm.
years, but not today. It's like you're
No.
just a number.
Mhm.
So tell me how you went from, because you have been you and your husband have had other businesses, so
Yeah.
you were entrepreneurs, right? So how did you even get involved in this whole like holistic arena?
Started with a horse.
Really?
Yeah. I can
That's
say it
cool.
started with a horse going back to my childhood. It's always been the horse that has created the pivotal change in my life. And I mean, when I was growing up, we grew up in a family where everybody was in the trade industry. You know, my parents were hands-on people, and my aunts and uncles and everybody, like my mother's side, was all in construction. So she was in construction. My father was in manufacturing, you know, and so I didn't grow up with any of this. I mean, it was just a typical family, close family relationship. And I didn't take on any additional education or high school. I didn't really like school. I mean, I did good in school. I had A's and B's, but something, I don't know, it was like I just couldn't fit in socially. Um, I was always that person that was like, I don't know. I wasn't like a wallflower, but I was always like a little bit indifferent. But I was always the person that people would go to when they had problems.
Interesting.
It was that kind of mindset. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I got in my preteen years, my parents decided to move and to a different place in Connecticut, and we relocated. And I was not happy about that because I was a preteen, and of course, a girl moving into a different
Mm,
town, you know, trying to get socially acclimated. On top of me being the way I already
right.
was a little traumatic in itself. So I didn't know this, but my mother had intentions of getting me a horse because I was always a horse crazy kid. So that's when I got the surprise, and one day we went out looking for one, and came home with one, and so that started my ability to be more, not so much shy and introverted, but more extroverted through the horse. And after that, we, let's see, I met my husband when I was 15. I got married when I was 17.
Wow.
And we both of us went right to work. You know, we had jobs. I went into automotive industry, and he was a auto mechanic, and then he went into construction industry with my uncle, and then so he kept in the trade. But then I went into corporate automotive, and around that time, I believe we started another business. He was working for his uncle, then he went off on his own. We started our own manufacturing company. So that's when we became quote unquote garage entrepreneurs. And I stayed in corporate until I had my first child, and then when my second child was born, let's see, no, I had my first child. Yeah. And then after he was, I think about a year old, I wound up working back home with Marty with the manufacturing. I left my corporate job and I started working with him, teaming up with him. So I was able to be a stay-at-home mom, but help him with the business. And it was a really good opportunity to be the both best of both worlds. I could be home with my kids, but the work was here. So we developed it a little bit farther along, and then we met a individual through my brother, and we connected with him, and we decided to join a partnership and expand the business. And we thought we were heading in the right direction, but it proved to be kind of a mess. And this guy was not the guy we thought he was, but it was definitely a learning experience. And that's where we got into financial trouble. So we went down that rabbit hole, bankruptcy, and it was a rough patch, but it caused a lot of stress and trauma on both of us because at the time, we had the bankruptcy. I lost my father. The horse that I had to be put down, and it was not in such a nice way, but it was kind of traumatic. So this is all going on at once. And then within, I don't know, maybe it was a few years from that, I was getting eczema on my skin and a lot of joint pain. And then my husband wound up with psoriasis. And, within a couple of years, it steadily got worse. And, here we are trying to, climb back up financially, start over again, and which we did. Um, that was funny. But we wound up, my husband had to take a job on the outside to keep going. We did wind up with one manufacturing company. We did CNC machining. and we
So
still
I'm
have
going to leave
one
that
here.
cliffhanger right here because we got to go to break,
Okay.
but we are going to finish the story because I'm fascinated by it. You're listening to the
Okay.
Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore more with Sue Martovich. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or either of my publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about my guest, Sue Martovich, at her website, which is www.naturalsalthealing.com. That is spelled naturalsalthealing.com. So before we went to break, you were leading us down this journey of kind of giving the picture of what was happening. You had like a lot of businesses running. There were things that were going on causing a lot of stress. You and your husband started having some health issues.
Yeah.
You were down to like one machine, and then we had to go to break. So we're all like, what happened?
Yeah. So, there was the opportunity to start over because we had some equipment that when it was coming to the end with his partner, we had already had another partner approach us, another person approach us and ask us to do custom door hardware for high-end homes. So we made it clear to the first partner that we were doing this, so there was no sneaking around. And so we just started another one because we had a suspicion. And so we started doing that hardware. And then we wound up severing our ties with the other partner, but he did some things that he promised he was going to do X, Y, Z, and he didn't. He broke the promise. So that's what forced us into bankruptcy. But we were still able to keep this other machine, so we were able to keep functioning. And then what we wound up doing is getting a hold of some of our older customers. And we kind of made up the story because I said, well, I'm running the machine. He's working elsewhere, but they don't know I'm running the machine. But we said, we're back in business, blah, 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 blah. So he's at a facility where they're letting him talk to me over the phone when I had questions, because he'd come home at night, program the machine, set it up, and then I'd be running parts during the day in the garage.
Wow.
So that went on for a while until he was able to come back. But during this time, the skin was becoming more problematic. I was having issues. And I'm trying to think, it was 2013. I don't think you can hear my dog. 2013, 2012 was when we're starting to, we were back on track. We were, making a good income, and everything seemed to be going well with the production and manufacturing. So, after that, we started, I got to get the dog. You heard the dog barking,
No,
Dan?
no, not at all.
Okay.
You're good.
All right, good.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So,
Yeah, so you're now starting to have some of these autoimmune type conditions and things like
right.
that, which when you're dealing with a business and you're trying to, build it up or sustain it or whatever, and as any entrepreneur would know, there's always a high amount of stress, even when things are going relatively well.
Well,
And
that is.
so,
And yeah,
yeah,
it's very difficult to maintain both worlds. And, when you're in that health crisis and you're reacting, which is what we were doing, and we were trying to keep going with, raising the bar for ourselves. It was overwhelming at times, and it was overwhelming to the kids. It was just not a good place to be. But my daughter was, at the time, we had a horse for her, and she was doing hunter jumper and jumper. And the person, we wound up at one barn, and then for there were a series of events, we wound up at a different barn, and that different barn, the owner of that different barn was actually the guy who bought the plaza where I'm at now and where Salt of the Earth is.
right.
So I didn't know any of that at the time, and we didn't know who he was at the time. We just wound up at his facility. And so one day we got talking, let me backpedal a little bit. I was at a place in, I think it was my dentist. My dentist, I was looking at a magazine. I think it was, I don't know if it's Natural Nutmeg or Natural Awakenings, but there was an ad in there for a Sultana cave, right? So I'm reading it,
Yep,
I'm
I
going, I
remember
wonder
them.
if this would be good for my husband because he loved the salt water. Salt water was very healing for his skin. And I said, this might be interesting. This might be a good thing to try. So we made an appointment and went to the cave. And I was really impressed. I was like, this is really cool. Um, of course, my entrepreneur brain's going off. And I said to
So
him,
for
what'd you think
people
about it?
who, let me just interrupt for a second. For people who have never been to a salt cave, don't even know like what these things exist or whatever, can you just
Yeah.
describe a little bit like what is it like?
So in a salt cave, what they do is they try to create like a cave appearance. I mean, it's not really a cave, although there are a couple places I've seen that actually they made, like it
Hmm.
looks like a cave. But there's a process where some of these salt cave areas where they spray the walls and make it look like a cave, and then they bring salt on the floor, and then you have a salt generator that's mounted outside the room and create some ambient lighting in there. And it's really a respiratory therapy, and it's also very grounding in there. So it's pharmaceutical grade salt that's in the generator, and it's milled to very, very tiny fine substance. And then it goes into the room and it just opens up the airways, clears out the bronchial areas and clears out mucus and congestion. So it's very, very therapeutic for the lungs. And like we talked about COVID, well, why couldn't I stay open? Because I wasn't
Yeah,
licensed. I didn't have
right.
a degree certification, whatever. Um, and that was actually the best place to be. But on top of it, which most, I know no salt cave has it except one in Massachusetts. It's a second air system, which really amplifies the purity in the room. It adds a whole nother layer of salt therapy is negative ion generated, but this amplifies the negative ions. So it's several thousand per cubic centimeter, which is a great provider to oxygenation to the bloodstream. So I had the two air systems, but that's pretty much what happens in there is it's all beneficial to respiratory and skin.
Yeah. How much
So
salt is it? Like if people can kind
tons,
of get a visual.
tons of
Tons.
salt,
Wow.
tons. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's in my mine, I didn't create the cave environment. I went conventional with the ceiling, but I have all the salt on the walls and the salt on the floor,
Yeah.
and I have the two air systems. So the
So you,
salt therapy really is good on so many different levels. I mean, salt is biblical, right? And
yeah.
it's been around for thousands of years, and it's on so many levels, it's so healing. But the story went with this, when I wound up at this facility with my daughter's horse, this was after we had experienced a salt cave, and the owner of the barn had mentioned to me that he had invested into a plaza in Woodbury. And I knew what the plaza was. And before that was a plaza, there was a hamburger joint there. And the hamburger joint name was Corey's. My daughter's name is Corey.
Oh, interesting. Somebody's
So,
leading you somewhere.
right? So you'll pick up things as I'm telling the story because this is what's gonna, at the end, it's gonna all make sense. But he had mentioned to us that he just invested in this plaza, and I knew it. Like I said, well, there's no. It's just an envelope box, right? There's nothing built inside. He goes, no, it's just a shell. And I said, I think I want a space. And he looked at me. He goes, what do you want a space for?
Yeah, for what?
I said, I want to open up a salt cave. And he goes, you want to do what?
Uh,
What's a salt cave? What? So I had explained to him what it was, and he says, you're crazy. I said, no, really, I want to check it out. Can we come look? And that's how it started.
Because
So,
you'd already had an experience. So you went to the other location that you found in the magazine. And
mm,
so I'm assuming you'd already had a good experience with that. Something,
yeah, it got
it
me
had an effect
thinking.
on. Yeah.
Well, because here was the problem. I mean, now this is where we get into, the when you are so caught up in pain and immune system and you feel hopeless and overwhelmed, right? You just feel like you're drowning in that stuff. And you think that there's no hope for you to recover. We were at that place many, many times with my husband. I mean, I was able to recover from what I had for the modalities we were doing. We were doing at the time NAET, and that really worked for me, but it wasn't enough for Marty. Marty's situation was much more severe. So I was I was trying, we were trying everything we could think of, and we spent thousands of dollars with Western medicine. It wasn't doing a thing. It just was not helping him at all. It was making it worse, actually.
Mm.
So that's why I said, I think we got to do something. We have to like get involved in this area, because I knew already from NAET that this was the path we needed to go. Something told me, go here. Now, if we didn't have the shift in trainers and the horse barn and the incidents that didn't happen over here, we would have never met this guy, right? You know, it's like divine intervention. And at that point, I said, I think we have to do this as a business so we can get into this world and figure it out. And that's what we did. And then I hired this woman whose daughter had Lyme, and she worked behind the counter. And she had told us about a house in Weston that was a healing house. And they had a device called Sharon. And they said that she said that Sharon was very effective for her daughter with the Lyme. Maybe we might want to try it with Marty. Because what we found out with the salt, we had a salt bed that was okay with him, but it wasn't enough, right? When you go into holistic healing and you go into natural remedies, it takes different modalities. You know, it's not just one thing, because we're you know, nutrition wise, emotional issues, physical issues. You have to come from different angles. And
Right.
so
Yeah. Well, there's a
salt
lot of
bed wasn't
layers to
enough.
things sometimes, especially,
Yeah.
people think like, oh, we're brainwashed with that pharmaceutical mindset that like you take a pill and you have an instantaneous
Yeah.
reaction or whatever, it fixes whatever the problem is right away. Then it usually causes other things. But natural medicine doesn't work that way. And also you have to remember that you didn't become that sick overnight, right? Like it
No,
took years of getting to that place.
no,
And
it
so
was,
you have to backtrack it that way. Like,
yeah. Yeah. So, you know, with what Marty had, it was probably residing in his body. I think the stress, that trauma triggered it, because it wasn't long after, we had the big takedown with the business, because he built that business up himself. So there was a lot of um,
yeah,
emotional
attachment
baggage
stuff.
that was
Yep.
there, and so we did that. So that's when we started going, and he started going doing the Sharon treatments. And then that opened other doors, because then we started meeting other people, because all these healers, these practitioners were showing up at her
Now they come out
facility.
of the woodwork.
Yeah, and we started meeting, it's like that
I
in your
want to learn.
community.
We're definitely going to get into that too. We're going to take another short break. This is fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Sue Martovich from naturalsalthealing.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I'm talking today with Sue Martovich. She is the co-owner of Salt of the Earth in Woodbury, Connecticut, and her website is www.naturalsalthealing.com. So when we left for break just a second ago, you were telling us basically about like you wanted to open this salt cave, and now all of a sudden, kind of you get this going, and now more and more people, or you're finding the right people, they're coming
Yep.
in, whatever, that many people might think like, oh yeah, just a coincidence, which we know that's not the case. Like
Yeah.
your story is so similar to my story in a way of how like I was in a whole different world and how I got
Yeah.
involved in the magazine and just who I had to meet actually to even get me close to that path of starting a magazine. It's fascinating.
So what happens though is the, the way when that happens is when you trust and you open up your heart.
Yeah.
When you start getting out of here, and stop getting caught up in the head, and you start going here, you have a knowing. And that picks up every place else. And all of a sudden that vibration that you're emitting coming from your heart and your soul now goes out to the universe. And now other people just get drawn in. And so you just got to trust more. And you when you had your pivotal moment, that's when you started trusting, and it's like a little kid, right? When you're outside and you see a puddle, what do? You just step in it, you jump in it with both feet, right?
Right.
So it's one of the things that I learned at Tony Robbins is about, just jumping in with both feet. And that's when I made that decision about the cave, I said, we're going to jump in with both feet. We're just going to take our chances here and see if this works. And then, like I said, when we started meeting these other people, I had no idea about the different types of treatments that were available. I had no idea of the massive amount of
Oh God,
therapies that are out there, the
so
choices that you
many.
have, right?
It's crazy, right? When you really get into this world, it literally is crazy, like how many different modalities there are, from natural medicine to energy medicine to like sound and vibration and frequency medicine, like so many different avenues you can go down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the thing, because it started out as one thing. It started out as a physical need. With the salt therapy, it became more physical. Uh-oh, I got a truck coming in. We're getting a lot of dog barking now.
No, that's okay. Well, I don't even
Okay.
hear your dog, actually.
All right, you'll
So
hear
you
it.
you just started as a salt cave, and then so people would come in there, and basically it was the that was the therapy, that was the healing, the
Yeah.
salt healing, basically.
Well, I had the
But
salt
you,
healing, but I
yeah,
also
but then you
had,
started having all, I mean, I've been there, I know maybe
yeah,
not right away, but you expanded that to a whole like boutique shop with all different kinds of
right,
products and things
right.
like that. And you had other therapies there with other practitioners and all that.
Yeah, I mean it's like I said, it started as a physical. Now this is where we go the mind, body, and spirit, right? So when I first started, it was a physical need. Now the next journey was the mental part, and it was going through um maybe my employees and dealing with my own brain, right? Because I wasn't going here enough. I was going too much in here.
Hmm.
So it was like I wasn't advancing like I wanted it to, and I was frustrated. And I also knew that, there's limited exposure to natural health remedies and services because they don't want people to know the effectiveness of it. They don't want to know that there's a success rate with it, right? They don't want to know that it heals. So the spiritual part came in with the COVID, but that was when it really took off to a whole different level. And that's where I truly awakened, right? And I truly tapped in my spirit. And then it shifted the whole place. It just changed everything on a consciousness level that I've never seen.
Because it was more like before, it was more like a holistic spa, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, right? And now
Mhm.
it's become more like a holistic center, like more like a healing center, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still, the value of the salt is so important. And really what I tell people is when you go in there, because they say, well, what do I do first? And I kind of try to steer them in a direction so they make the decision, but that isn't always the case. I mean, so I said, well, you know what? I would say just start with the salt therapy. Just go into the cave, open your heart, just relax, let everything happen. And they shift when they come out, and it's then they're in a different mindset and they're more open to having a conversation, and then everything spells out. They start talking about their life and what happened to them and how they feel and what they're dealing with. And so the whole idea is to start at a place and then work your way up. And you do it without even knowing that you're doing it. It just happens naturally, organically. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what happened in my life. My life started one side, and here we were in the trade industry, very much 3D, right? I had no idea what 5D was. I have no
Right.
idea what consciousness meant. I had no idea about this energy. I'm so much into frequencies now, and that's pretty much what I've been diving into is frequency and light and vibration. And I didn't even start with that salt of the earth when I began,
Right.
but it all evolved. And it's kind of like if I look back at my life, how I started with this 3D environment, and then um, the worst things happened. It was like oh God, it was so intense between his pain and the suffering that he went through and the financial hardships. And I never thought I'd get out of it. I was just like, I'm drowning in this. And when we changed our mindset and we became more aligned with our consciousness, it made everything different because now when I look at life, I don't look at life like a system. I step away and I'm like more, I show discernment. Okay. So when I approach something, I say, does this align with me? Does it feel right with me? You know what? Let me think about this overnight. Should I do this or should I not do this? You know, and people sometimes they just want instant gratification. They don't stop and reflect, right? They don't detach from it. We get so connected to our past and we hold on to our beliefs, and that's what steers us sometimes. And because we do that, we can't allow for all this flow to happen and all the abundance to come in.
Right.
So when we come into a tragedy and then we hold on to that, we can't evolve, right? We can't rise from the ashes. We can't release that because we just want to live in that, or we want to have that victim mindset, right? When a lot of the people that I um, come across in my place is I have a lot of people that have Lyme, autoimmune stuff, and they're in victim mode. And it's difficult for them to see it, see above that or step away from it. So that's when the spiritual part comes in. And that's what I tell them. I said, look, like my husband, there was many times when he wanted to just die. He was in so much pain, he couldn't take it just one. So we learned how to meditate through the most difficult times of our lives. And, I wind up with an ability now that I never had before. Well, maybe I did have it because when I was a child, I was always kind of like this set apart person, and I really didn't find any place to fit in, you know?
Right.
And now when I talk to people, I just pick up their energy and I'll say things to them and they say, well, how did you know that? And I'm like, it just comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't because I got trained to do that. It wasn't that I took a course. And I'm not saying I'm an expert because I'm not, but I do know that what I know, everybody can develop and have. And you don't need to go through all the stuff that I went through to obtain it. I could,
Right.
you can take a
Yeah,
shortcut
it's
and
like
just
you're
start
right,
meditating.
right? It's like your inherent
Mm,
intuitive nature that we all have. It's
yeah,
everyone, every human has a right to that. But people don't, people think like, oh no, I don't have that, or
right,
I don't know how to do that. Or really what it comes down to is you're just not trusting yourself, right?
right,
Because
right.
when, intuition is all about trusting those signs that you get or the
Yeah.
feeling that you have, or, whatever the senses that it works through with you.
Well, that was it,
Um,
it's like, every time there's been a horse that shows up in my life, something big has happened. And I found out the horse is in my animal totem, by the way. So,
and
I
aren't we
just,
in the year of the fire horse?
yeah,
So it's your year.
it's my year, right? Yeah, it's my year. And that's why I'm standing here. But I am so humble at the same time. I'm so humble and so grateful for what I have because I look at the place that I go to every day and help people and they say, oh, you know so much, you know this, you know that, and how did you get all this knowledge? And I'm like, it's easy. You just do your own research, right? When they say do your own research, but at the same time, start tapping into your higher being and do that work. I meditate every night. And the meditation is what is helping me in my intuitiveness, in my ability to tap into people's energy more. But it's also my story, because if I reflect back to my story, and everybody could do it too. If you look back on the most difficult times in your life, I guarantee you're going to find a silver lining that came as a result of it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
all about, yes, you should show discernment. You should look to align with things that are right for you. But in order for you to do that, you have to be able to get out of here, right? The heart-brain connection is so screwed up. We have a dysfunctional world today, right? And people are so sidetracked. It's like squirrel, 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 right? And they
Yeah.
want us to be that way. They
Yeah.
don't want us to use our third eye. It's like,
Yeah, no, not at all. And actually, the meditation is what helps you develop that gift, because the meditation is taking you out of, the crazy, all the
yeah,
thinking, and the squirrel, the thoughts, the whatever you want to call it, like all that stuff. The meditation is actually quieting all of that down so
yeah,
that you can hear and trust your intuition, because without that, like you're not going to hear anything. You're not going to hear the messages. You're not going to be open to them. You're not going to
right.
notice them, because there's all this stuff constantly, going on up here. So that's like, that'd be the best recommendation you would give somebody who says to you, like, oh, I can't do that, or how do you do it? Or I don't know how to do it.
Mhm.
It's like literally just start basic meditation, even if it's like, just sit there and try, be quiet. And even if you only get through a minute the first time,
Well,
like
just give
that's,
yourself 5 minutes,
that's
right? Give yourself,
exactly, exactly. We're
and
gonna go to another quick break.
okay.
I'm so fascinated by your story. It's amazing. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show. When we come back, we'll be talking more with Sue Martovich. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me and contact me at my website, which is www.drdianehayden.com. And you can learn more about my guest, Sue Martovich, at her website, which is www.naturalsalthealing.com. And she is the co-owner of Salt of the Earth, which is a salt cave in Woodbury, Connecticut. So when we went to break, we were talking just a little bit about the importance of meditation and your meditation practice, and how that has helped you really kind of tap into your intuition and those gifts that we all have. So anything else that you want to tell our listeners just about the practice of meditation, or kind of where it's led you in your
Yeah, so
journey?
I'm just living proof that you can go from 3D to 5D without
Right.
having to take a course.
Well,
You
I
know,
think I'm so glad you said that, because I think what the whole purpose of this show, actually, as we've been talking and like learning about your journey, honestly, I think is for someone who is in a 3D job. So it could be corporate, it could be
yep,
trade, it could be anything, but it's something outside of the world of natural medicine and healing and all of that, but wants to do something like what you did, and maybe is nervous or scared or doesn't know how to start, or thinks that you need to go back to school or all these things. And basically, what you've done is amazing. I mean, you basically were like, hey, look, we found this therapy that helped, both of you with autoimmune issues and
mhm,
skin issues and respiratory issues. And you were like, this is what we're going to dedicate our life to. We're going to open up a salt cave. And you did it.
yeah. So what we did was, at the time, my husband, because we were making a good income, I was able to put this together and offer reasonable prices. Because the people that were coming into me were the pharmaceutical refugees, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had already spent their money, their extra money, and they come in and look, I don't have a lot of money here, but what can you do for me?
Right.
Can you help me? And we were able to keep our low prices. And so that was my way of helping the community and give back, because everything that I went through, I realized that this is something important for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I get the word out? And so the business model I used was keeping the prices low. I wasn't doing, I couldn't accept insurance. And that was a big thing. I do accept insurance. So the meditation really is the big umbrella. And it took me this whole roller coaster or ride to arrive there. But, Marty, with his darkest moment was when we started going more into meditation. And the meditation was saved us. And going back to that, like with I have a very dear friend of mine who was fighting stage 4 cancer. And it's been a difficult time, but I worked with her for a few days and I got her to go to a meditation ritual. And she's thanked me for that. She says, every night I'm going in, I'm getting my brain to calm down and I'm dealing with this on a better perspective. So it's not about my expertise, it's your expertise. Everything you need is up here,
Yeah.
right? So with my devices that I have the biocharger, I have the near infrared red light therapy, we have the 3 salt rooms, I have Healy, I have Mag Healy, I have bioacoustic sound and vibration, I have chakra light therapy. You could look at everything and say, I'll do those things, but I want more. That's when you catapult, right? You want more is the spiritual side. If you don't want the more, if you don't want the spiritual side, you can keep circulating around here.
Mhm.
So, every healing device well, quote unquote, is a trap, right? Because it holds you to thinking that that's going to fix you. So
Yeah.
the one final leg of the journey is the spiritual side, right? So you can do all these things. Yes, they're going to help you, but you need to go here.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, But I can tell you that really where I'm finding the most important significant changes is the frequencies, the light, the sound, the vibration that goes directly to the cells. And even salt has a vibration with the human cell because we have salt in our biowaters. So there is a very important connection to that. But what I'm learning now in the last 4 or 5 years is how the cells communicate. So frequency is a very, very important thing to bring in, from incoherent cells to coherent cells. And so to me, that is the healing of the future.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. I'm
Yeah.
totally into all the stuff with frequency and vibration and sound and all that. It's amazing.
It's a huge industry.
Hmm.
It's massive because if you think of how many devices Nikola Tesla is in, it's everywhere.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So I never stop learning. Like I said, I'm grateful for what I have. I am grateful for the people coming in. I learn from every single person that walks in that door. Just as much as they say, I learn from you, I learn from you. Teach me, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think people can get a little overwhelmed with all the options that are out there. It's like, where do you start? Whether if you have a Lyme diagnosis or autoimmune or cancer or
Right.
whatever it might be, it's kind of like, oh my God, like there's so many different things. Where do I start? And I feel like with what you've created with your center, it's like, come here, go into the salt cave, experience that, and then from there, figure out if there's other modalities that you want to add on. But at least, like you said, opens up someone's mind, gets them in more of a meditative state to be, accepting, I think, of different options and not have it be so overwhelming.
No, it doesn't because life can be a whole lot simpler if you allow it to. We
No,
complicate it, right?
exactly. We
We
like to do that.
It's like I did. I spent 2 hours last night looking at all my notes and go, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? Oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah, see, right? You didn't need any of that.
Yeah, I just threw it away. I was like, screw this.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. No, I know. And I think people get really caught up in having to do something the right way. Like,
Yeah,
especially when you have a serious health diagnosis. I think people
right.
are really, really like caught up in, oh my God, I have to do this, I have to fix this, or I have to do this the right way because otherwise I'm not gonna get better, it's not gonna work, or whatever.
Only you know what the right way is. You just got to figure out how to get there.
Right. Yep. And it's simpler than you think most
It
often.
is. We got away from simplicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be that kid, jump in the puddle with 2 feet. And don't be afraid of the money. Money is just stupid energy. I know.
Yeah.
I was at the bottom, okay? And I got up, and I realized how we got to diminish the importance of that. Yes, it is because, oh my God, I got to have a job. But live life a lot simpler. If you have to give up things for your health, then you give up things for your health. Your health should be first.
Yeah. Because if you
You
don't
know,
have
that
that, you have
that's a
nothing.
no-brainer.
Yeah. You think.
Yeah.
You
I
think it would be.
For me, I know,
Not
but
always.
not always. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Money is energy, just like anything, right? Like, I
It
think
is.
it's, I talk with holistic practitioners about this all the time, some that are just starting a practice or have been in practice. I
Yep.
think the number one thing that you have to get comfortable with as an entrepreneur is the ebb and flow of
Yeah.
just your business and
Right.
revenue. And you're going to
Right.
have seasons that are great. You're going to have seasons that they're low or less than. And you can't freak out every single time you see that
Right.
happen. Like, oh, the revenue's going down or whatever. It's going to come back. I mean, I've been doing
Yeah.
this for 20 years, just like you. It's like, you've seen it so many times,
Yep.
it's going to come back. It's just the natural
Yeah.
ebb and flow of stuff.
You can't create the intention unless you're, out of the ego mindset. And then if you're going into meditation, you manifest that, right? Just keep the ebb and flow going. But when you go back to the fear, that that just stops it,
Yeah.
and then you're stuck.
Yeah.
So,
So we have a couple minutes before we finish up our show for today. Anything else that you want our listeners to know about you or Salt of the Earth or your journey or
um, so just, if you have any kind of doubt about your life because you're reflecting on your past, find ways to release that, right? Surrender, release, forgive. Those 3 words themselves is so important. And when you start going to your heart space, you start being still and being quiet. Step away, show some discernment, take a look at that and say, is this really good for me? If there is a tug right here, it says, I don't know. Well, then maybe you should listen to that. Listen to your body more. Be gentle with yourself. Take care of yourself.
yes. Yeah. Hey, and we're back. We're full circle back to healthcare should start with self-care.
Right, right. You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, but that's so important. I think I love what you just said. Like, people get so caught up in their story and their trauma or their grief or whatever it is and
Yeah. And they
ruminating.
don't have time, right? I don't have time.
We all have time.
Yeah, get off that phone.
Well, that's true too, right?
Right?
Yeah. How much time do people waste on social media? You can get hours of your day back if you get out of that rabbit hole.
You're sitting there swiping all the jokes and the memes and everything,
Yep.
right? An hour goes by.
Oh, it's so true. It is so true. Yep. So
Mhm.
there's time. You can find 5 minutes to meditate or just be quiet, be in a quiet space or whatever, and you'll be surprised at
Or
how it
come to
changes
salt
your
of the
whole
earth.
day. It changes
Yep,
your
come to
whole day.
salt of the earth and go in the cave and be quiet for 45 minutes.
There you go. Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Sue. This has been awesome. Again, your website is www.naturalsalthealing.com, and people can find you in Woodbury at Salt of the Earth. And I want to thank you again for all your great wisdom.
Okay.
Awesome. And
Take
I want
care,
to thank all
Diane.
of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and I will see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.